Honorable Mike Defensor, wala nang mag-interpolate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po sa pagkakataon. Mr. Chair, if I may, I have a presentation. Gusto ko muna, bago ako magsalita, while they're preparing it, una ko sa lahat, kaya kanina ho, tinicheck ko yung documents. Ngayon ko lang nalaman na ngayong umaga lang sinubmit yung ibang dokumento. Ngayon lang ho. Yes, Mr. Chair. So, matagal na ho to, Mr. Chair, na sinabi. And in fact, ang hirap sa marami nating kasama na hindi sila nabibigyan ng guidance tungkol dito sa mga dokumentong to. Maybe Mr. Gerlan would like to react on my statement. Go ahead, please. Mr. Chair, with your permission.
Mr. Chair, we would like to clarify, sir, that our submission of the documents was made yesterday.
Yes, I acknowledge that majority of the documents, 95%, was received yesterday on, I think, 3:30 or 3 o'clock. But there was a few documents additional received this morning. I think those are the ones mentioned by Representative Defensor.
Same documents.
Those are the same.
Yes, sir.
So those are the same pala.
Okay. Mr. Chair, just I'd like to clarify because I've been looking to the documents. Hindi ko po nakita yung tinatanong ko kanina. But Comsec Marivic, Attorney Marivic was kind enough to point out the soft copy. Pero Mr. Chair, ang hirap din naman po that we're coming into the hearing and these are voluminous documents. Para malaman lang natin, para alam ng taong bayan, pagka pinagsama-sama natin yung mga copies niyo, siguro mga ganito kakapal yun para basahin natin. And mahirap pong basahin tong mga to, hindi ganun kadali dahil these are financial documents. And you really have to make an understanding, kailangan mong intindihin ano talaga tong dokumentong to. But at any rate, Mr. Chair, let me proceed with my presentation.
Let's proceed.
Yes. Mr. Chair, before I begin, gusto ko malaman, sino bang presidente ngayon ng Lopez Holdings?
Si Tirona,
Attorney.
Salvador Tirona. Mr. Salvador Tirona is on Zoom.
Yes. May I know the chairman? Because Mr. Tirona is the president. Who's the chairman?
Chairman is, I think, Lopez, P.K. Lopez.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the chairman of the board now, Lopez Holdings, is Mr. Federico Lopez.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, before I begin, gusto ko lang iklaro. Mr. Federico Lopez was not involved dito sa sitwasyon to. Bago na po itong Lopez na to. At yung pong DBP, nakaharap natin ngayon, I'm not sure kung sa legal department, they were there that time, pero let's say Mr. Herbosa and the others, Attorney Adjong, hindi rin po sila involved. I just want to put that for the record. In the same manner na si Mr. Federico Lopez, kilala ko sa business circle at maganda po ang pagkakilala sa kanya. I just want to clarify that in the same manner na yung si Presidente during the hearing was saying na naawa siya kay Mr. Mark Lopez and Mr. Carlo Katigbak of ABS-CBN dahil hindi naman sila kasama doon sa punot dulo ng problema. Having said that, Mr. Chair, gusto kong ipaliwanag na itong loans na pinag-uusapan natin was an offshoot of the investigation of ABS-CBN. Dahil ang punto ng Presidente dito, ginagamit o wino-weaponize ang mass media in order to seek favors, in order to seek, in this particular case, loans from the DBP. Ginagamit po yung mass media para gamitin, makautang, magamit para sa negosyo. Yan po yung naging unang punto nun na binabanggit ng ating Pangulo. And rent-seeking, oligarchy, these are the key terms used by the President. So if I may, the first part, I'll go by this step by step if the team can assist me on the presentation. The DBP loan investigation by the ABS-CBN Lopez Group of Companies. So I'll go through this step by step. Una po sa lahat, next slide please. Ang mga loans po na to, nagsimula noong 1995. Yan po ang loan, parang hindi makita ata, ng loan ng Bayan Telecommunications. Ito po ay isang syndicated term loan, $374.4 million. Ang ginamit na collateral dito ay estate mortgage on present and future real assets. Outstanding balance by 2006, so from 1995 to 2006, hindi po nakapagbayad ng 576 million. Pagkaklaro, hindi lang naman po sa DBP yan. Again, syndicated, marami pong nagpautang. Tama po, Attorney Quezon, ang aking paliwanag?
Uh, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to refer that question to our resource person, Mr. Tirona.
Mr. Torona, for the record, you may want to respond. Mr. Chair, with your permission.
Mr. Tirona, are you there on Zoom? Please respond to the question.
Yes, Your Honor, I did respond. Yes, that is correct.
So, pagkaklaro lang ho, hindi ito solely with the Development Bank of the Philippines. In May 1996, next slide please, umutang po ang Benpress Holdings ng 157 million pesos. Ang ginamit pong collateral, negative pledge over the assets of Benpress. Next slide. Ang Philippine Home Cable Holdings, o ito na po ang Sky Cable na sinasabi natin, 207 million pesos. Again, syndicated po to, pinagsama-sama, ang total amount was 450 million. At ito po ay under mortgage trust indenture, mortgage participation certificate. Yan po yung sa Sky Cable Corporation. And in the case of Maynilad Water Services, next slide please, ang loan po ibinigay noong year 2000. Ngayon po, kung makikita nyo dyan ang collateral, secured by joint and solidary signature of Benpress. DBP, ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if DBP Legal Services again could explain, anong ibig sabihin ng joint and solidary signature of Benpress?
Attorney Adjong, please respond.
Sir, it only means that the surety is solidarily liable for the loan obligation.
Okay.
So pag hindi po nakabayad yung borrower, then si surety is also considered a
Borrower.
liable under the surety sheet.
Tama po ba, Attorney Adjong, na yung mga mismong kasama doon sa korporasyon, gumagawa sila ng garantiya? Kung sino man yung mga nandoon.
Surety, yes, Your Honor.
Now, para ho maliwanag,
Yung-
naintindihan ho natin, pero yung taong bayan, para nakikinig at nanonood sa atin ngayon, kung ako po yung may kumpanya at direktor ako sa kumpanyang yon, pag pinautang ako ng bangko, bukod doon sa garantiya, bukod doon po sa pag-utang niya, ang garantiya ko ay yung pagpirma ko na pag hindi nakabayad, ako mismo personal magbabayad sa utang.
Kung sino po yung nag-execute ng surety sheet.
Okay. Sa makatuwid, tama po ba, Atty. Adjong, laway lang to?
No, sir.
Ano
Sir,
pong collateral?
It means, sir, that we consider the net worth of the person or the corporation executing the surety sheet.
Okay, sige. Ang sinasabi niyo po, si Congressman Marcoleta, mayaman, nasa kumpanya siya, o hindi, ginagarantiyan niya. Pero ang ibig po sabihin nito, Atty. Adjong, wala siyang ibinigay na bahay, wala siyang ibinigay na lupa, wala siyang ibinigay na kahit ano. O shares niya na para ginagarantiyan niya yung loan. Katulad po tayo, pag bumili ng bahay, naka-loan yung bahay natin pag umutang tayo. Pag meron tayong kotse, sasabihin natin pautang, ito po yung kotse natin sa pawn shop. Pag ikaw may relo, may singsing, bibigay mo, para yung dito ho, walang ganon.
Yung
Atty. Adjong, huwag mo
yes,
naman
sir, I'm
ikomplika.
trying to explain, sir, that yes, he is liable solidarily
Yeah, I
with the
know.
borrower.
I'm asking is,
So in
meron
other
bang
words, sir,
collateral na pisikal? Meron
Wala,
bang
sir.
singsing?
Not
Meron
on
bang
the-
lupa? Wala.
Not on a specific property.
Oh, parang sinabi po natin, may kumpanya si Congressman Marcoleta, sinasabi lang nyo, dahil nakita nyo mayaman siya, yung pirma niya sapat na para pautangin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so sa makatuwid, at least in my interpretation, wag na po kayo, laway para sa akin. Walang ibinigay na collateral, yung kanya lang pagkatao. Ang ginamit
Hindi naman
niya.
laway, face value.
Face value. Face value. Tinagalog ko lang, Mr. Chairman.
Character loan, character loan.
Oh. I apologize to the members of the committee if face value may be the correct term. Now, I'll go to the next. Ito ho, tanong ko. Binigay niyo po ba yan sa amin, DBP? Minutes number 9, Resolution 0251. Nasa amin po ba yan? Wala. Ako na po sasagot, Mr. Chair. Wala po. Wala. And kaya ko po ito binabanggit, Mr. Chair, makikita nyo, nasa DBP yan. And yet, hindi binigay sa committee. Now, I'll proceed to the next. Next slide, please. Yan po ang resolution number 0219. Manila Water Services Special One-Shot Transaction, Clean Bridge Facility of 1 billion. Attorney Jong, ano pong ibig sabihin ng Clean Bridge Facility?
Sir, in general terms, it means that they are given financing while awaiting some other form of financing.
Yung pong bridge.
Yes,
Pero yung clean, ibig sabihin, walang collateral.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, ang ibig sabihin, nagbigay kayo ng 1 billion dahil meron kayong sinasabing, oh, may darating pala siyang pera. Di ba? Parang ganun po yung naging pag-uusap nyo dyan. Binigyan ngayon ng pautang in the year 2000. 1 billion po to. Alam nyo, Mr. Chair, sa aking mga kasama, ang hirap po umutang eh. Kahit na yung bridge facility, kailangan maglagay ka ng isang tinatawag na collateral o garantiya tungkol dito. Pero dito po ang linaw. In the year 2000, and this document I'm presenting to you right now was not given to us, Mr. Chair. It is there with DBP. Hindi po binigay sa atin yan. Now, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, tatanungin ko po, pwede po bang sinabi ng isang bangko, well, I guess the private banks, okay lang po yan. But for government financial institutions, na meron akong utang na darating, without collateral, pwede po sila magpautang? Bangko Sentral, Ms. Cube, magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Yes, good morning, Chairman, again. In practice, banks can actually provide loans that are not secured. So loans are actually classified as secured and unsecured, sir.
Yes. Ngayon po, Ms. Cube, if I may, Mr. Chair, di ba ho binibigay itong mga to for a bridge financing? Meron kang record talaga. Meron ka talagang pagbabayad. Hindi yung biglang nagkaroon na lang ng sumulpot, bibigyan ka ng 1 billion clean bridge credit facility. Because it is very hard to get a bridge facility. You have to have the track record, you have to have the net worth. In this particular case, you have to have the collateral. Is that not right, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, if I may, at the end, it has to conform with the internal policies and procedures and credit granting policies and procedures of DBP. So the board and management should ensure that it conforms and complies with this criteria that they themselves have set.
So in this particular case, Mr. Chair, hindi nga nakapagbayad. So you can see that there was a mistake, Mr. Chair. Again, from BSP.
Mr. Chair, I regret I cannot comment whether there is a misjudgment on the grant of the loan because I don't have the facts, and it would be for DBP to reply to that if the grant of the loan was in conformance with the internal policies and procedures of the bank.
Thank you, Ms. Cube. Tama po naman. Just to be fair, you were not there in the discussion
Mr.
and
Chair, may I
the
interject?
presentation of documents by
Mr. Chair, may I interject?
Lopez Group of companies as regards this particular loan.
Are you willing to?
Deputy Speaker,
Please, like to recognize the Honorable Marcoleta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam from the Central Bank, is it not true that Section 143 of the Manual of Registrations for Banks, MORB, sets forth the guidelines on credit risk management to ensure that financial institutions such as DBP have adequate and effective comprehensive credit risk management system? Ito po yung sa position paper ninyo. So in replying to the Honorable Defensor, meron po kayong guideline. Tama po.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have guidelines that are principles-based, and the granularity of that should be laid down clearly and articulated in a manner that is understandable and implementable and feasible by the bank concerned.
That is correct. But the Honorable Defensor is trying to articulate that, there are certain loan proponents na wala namang collateral at hindi maliwanag, pero pero binibigyan ng ganun-ganun lang. How does this Section 143 operate pagka ganun lang kaluwag pala? Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may ask the accounting group of DBP, yung pong 9 billion na loan na binabanggit natin because these were 1996 loans, eventually nagkaroon ng failure 2006. Magkano na value niyan ngayon? More or less. Based on inflation, based on the projections. Ang ano lang po, more or less, a projection of what you want. 37% of the past value, 37%.
We have to ask our investment bankers to compute that, sir.
Would
Because
anyone be
it's
able to
like,
answer that question?
future valuation? So
Thank you. Anyway, Mr. Chair, I would think it would be somewhere in the vicinity of 12 to 15 billion, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chair. Would that be a correct estimation?
No daw, no.
Don't worry, a case won't be filed if you answered wrongly. It was just a...
Maybe you should apply the 2% per year inflation.
Okay,
You
Mr. Chair.
multiply it and you compound it, you will get the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, again, as I've stated, ito po ang mga dokumentong tinatago ng DBP. Next slide. Ito naman po yung nangyari. Minutes of the 2004 meeting, December 16, minutes number 39. Ito po ang mga members present. Ito, andyan ang chairman, vice chairman, and the directors. May tanong lang po ako. Chairman Anyagas was there? Tama po ba? Who can answer me? Corsec of the board.
Based on that document, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nanyagas was present in that meeting, sir.
Who else were present? Sino po bang nandun pa nung aprubahan to?
Like the same answer, Mr. Chairman, those named therein.
Can you state them for the record?
Yes, sir. The others present are Honorable Reynaldo G. David, who is the Vice Chairman, and the following members of the Board of Directors. Honorable Fernando T. Barican, Honorable Elidio V. Jimenez, Honorable Alexander R. Magno, Honorable Ricardo G. Nepomuceno Jr., Honorable Floro F. Oliveros, Honorable Joseph N. Pangilinan, and Honorable Ray Magno Tebes, Mr. Chairman.
And the others present?
Also present there, Mr. Chairman, are Mr. Jaime De La Rosa as consultant, Senior Executive Vice President Edgardo F. Garcia, Executive Vice President Carlos R. Cruz, Vice President Lutgarta C. Baquirat Peralta, Assistant Vice President Maria L. Ramos, and Attorney Jose Manuel I. Jokno, sir.
Would you know the personalities of those people? Like si Mr. De La Rosa is a consultant. Tama po, Attorney Gerlan?
Yes, sir, it appears from that document.
Yes. And Senior Executive Vice President po si Mr. Edgardo Garcia.
Yes, sir.
Executive Vice President si Mr. Cruz po.
Yes, sir. He was then the Chief Legal Counsel of DBP, sir.
Chief Legal Counsel. Then you have the Vice President, Mr. Peralta, Assistant to the Vice President. Is that correct? Assistant Vice President pala.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maria Ramos. And then Attorney Jokno. Is this Attorney Chel Jokno?
I believe that is him, sir.
Bakit nandito rin siya? What is the classification?
I am not aware, sir, in what capacity he was present in the
At any rate, Mr. Chairman, if I may proceed, next slide please. Ito ho ang nakakatakot dyan. Yung special transactions, letter D. Kasi mahaba po to eh. Minutes number 39, December 16, 2004. Ang nilagay po ninyo kanina, and I ask you, Attorney Adjong, di ba ho may JSS na pinirmahan? Joint Solidarity Signature.
Yes,
Tama
sir.
ho?
Yes, sir.
Number 1, tinanggal nyo yung guarantee. The bridge loan facility and peso loan facilities shall be deemed released, and the bridge banks and peso lenders shall have no further recourse against such benpress guarantees. Yan lang ho ang pinang-ahawakan yung collateral, tinanggal nyo pa. Is that correct?
Sir, based on the records available, it appears that the board.
Attorney Adjong, it does not appear. It was done. It was approved by the board.
It was approved, yes, sir, by the board of directors of DBP.
Exactly. Why? Yun lang ang pinanghawakan nyo, ba't nyo tinanggal?
I think you have to explain that very well.
I'm sorry, sir, but I would not be able to personally explain it as I was not present.
Who can explain it?
Sir, maybe the record, the
Maybe
what?
maybe we could subpoena one of those present there, or we can invite first so that those present in that room can if they recall it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Pero, again, no, Attorney Jong, pasensya ka na. Hindi naman ikaw to eh. Pero ang pinapoint out ko lang, ito lang ang pinanghawakan ninyo. As an institution, as Development Bank of the Philippines, can you imagine yung tanong kanina, meron naman sa Pablo. Tapos mag-waiver yung mga financial institutions, pabayaan natin yung private. Kanila yun eh. But for government financial institutions to do this, nakakatakot. Yung 1 billion na yun, from day one, laway. Because the only guarantee you had, yun lang pong garantiya na pinanghawakan nyo, tinanggal. Now, number 2, tingnan nyo po, unconditional waiver, accumulated defaults and penalty fees, default and penalty fees. As of December 31, yung pong hindi nila pagbayad, may mga default sila, may mga penalty, 144 million, tinanggal nyo. Tama po ba, Atty. Jong?
based on record, sir, it appears it was
Atty. Jong, do not
sir.
say it appears because you were there and you know this. I mean, you are
Sir, I'm
there.
sorry,
in
I was
the-
not there po. I was not
I
present.
know. What I'm saying is, kasama kasi ito institution. No? Again, Atty. Jong, hindi ikaw to.
For the
Pero
record, sir.
tinanggal ang default and penalty fees. Tama po ba?
Based on record, sir.
Based on record. So, Mr. Chair, again, I'm bringing this to the committee. Pagka ho tayo nagkautang, alam nyo, sa housing, ang daming ganyan eh. Lalo ngayong krisis. Hindi nakakapagbayad. Hirap na hirap po silang tanggalin yung mga penalties. Hirap na hirap silang tanggalin. May kung ano nung binabayaran po yan, pag hindi ka nakapagbayad, may interest penalty ka, meron kang mga defaults. Yung mga mahihirap po, na bumibili ng bahay sa probinsya, dito sa atin, in fact, we had to go to Congress to request for a law para lang matulungan itong mga mahihirap. Pero itong ganito ho, 144 million. Ilang pamilya na ho yan? Ilang tao na po yan? 144 million, again, was waived by the Development Bank of the Philippines. Next slide, please.
Before that,
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair,
Yes,
I think,
DS Marcoleta.
I think I will urge the Honorable Defensor to probably ask the regulator of the banks and quasi-banks, the central bank, what did the central bank do, or did the central bank know about this, considering that they are the regulatory agency?
I think they will answer the same thing they answered a while ago, that it's an internal procedure and policy.
But the problem, Mr. Chair, this internal policy affects the interests of the entire country and its people.
Yes, I
Then
agree.
we-
That's why it is our job to correct this
Yes.
forever happening again.
Thank you.
For the record, Mr. Chair, and for the comfort of the Honorable Marcoleta, meron po ba kayong reply, Bangko Sentral?
Mr. Chair, as to the particular transaction that is being flashed right now or discussed, I am personally not privy yet, so it may be untimely to comment on the case at hand. But perhaps it would be helpful to say that we conduct on-site examinations, and part of our examination procedures is, of course, to look into the propriety of certain transactions of the bank if it is in scope in our examination.
Are you saying, Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, does
Yes,
the
DS Marcoleta.
Given that kind of answer, are we made to understand that the central bank does nothing in regard to its regulatory function, like looking into the contracts entered by the debtor and the FIs involved? Because considering that all these are money of the people, I think central bank has an active role in being able to look into all this, particularly the examples already made that even transactions with no collaterals based on JSS only, and there is an action removing the very assurance that those loans can be collected. The central bank as a regulatory agency has the responsibility to look into this and probably even monitor before it happens. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Marcoleta. You may continue, Honorable Defensor.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, before I ask this question, ito po yung special purpose vehicle law.
I'd like to make a suggestion to your humble representation.
Yes, Mr.
Maybe
Chair.
we could invite the chairman then, Vitaliano Naniagas, to shed light on these transactions. What do you think?
I have no problem with that, Mr. Chair. But I think, para sa akin, no, malinaw eh. Ito yung nangyari, klaro sa akin yung mga
Hindi, yung
actions
frame of
taken.
mind nila, bakit sila nagbigay ng mga ganyang concessions? Napakalaki. Diba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. May Comsec please invite former chairman DBP Vitaliano Naniagas to the next hearing.
Mr. Chair, not only that, because when the minutes of the meeting of the board was presented by Congressman Defensor, it only not involve Laniagas, but other members of the board. And so we have to subpoena them all. Invite them all in the next hearing to shed light on those matters.
Maybe since you know we are in COVID situation, maybe we get first his reply. If you're not satisfied, then we invite the rest.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. As recommended by the Honorable Garbin.
Including that of the president and CEO, if he's still alive.
He's not alive now.
CEO Rinaldo G. David, he's still alive?
He recently died.
He recently died.
Excellent. This happened in 2004, Mike, right? And
Yes.
they are all appointed.
Yes.
Yes.
Who appointed them?
At that time, it was during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Mr. Chair.
2004.
2004. The loans were provided during the time of President
Ramos.
and President Estrada.
Estrada.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, make it of record that the invitation should be sent to all the members of the board who are still alive right now. Those that have mentioned by Congressman Defensor.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Please
Mr. Chair,
invite all of the directors listed in the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask again Ms. Cube of the Bangko Sentral, and of course the legal is also here. Kasi pumasok na po ako sa SPAV law, and I will have a discussion on this. Kasi po yung certificate of eligibility, if we can go to the next slide, para lang humapaliwanag. Next slide, please. So ito yung batas. Ang nakalagay po dyan, Section 12, letter B. The transfer of non-performing assets from financial institution, yung FI po, to a special purpose vehicle shall be subject to prior certification of eligibility. Nakalagay na po dyan. So, shall be subject to prior certification. Wala hong qualification. Kung sinasabing meron kang incentive, kung may hiningin ka, sinasabi niya, it shall be subject to prior certification. So I'd like to ask again, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Ms. Cube, you mentioned before and you were affirming na, you said in your understanding, no, just to be clear about it, kailangan talaga magkaroon ng certificate of eligibility. So may I know from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas kung ito po talaga ang dapat na proseso?
Sir, Mr. Chair, as far as banks applying for tax incentives under the SPV Act of 2002, yes, they have to apply with the supervising or the regulator in order to have those NPAs eligible and such that the BSP will be able to issue the COE. Mr. Chair, with your indulgence po, Congressman Mike, in the FIST law, which I said mirrors some of the provisions of the SPV Act, in the FIST law, also Section 12, this was further reiterated, this particular Section 12 of SPV. However, there are certain enhancements, and if I may read, the
Ms. Cube, I'm sorry. Yun lang pong dito lang po sa SPV law, kasi ito yung particular concern po natin.
Yes, sir.
So, ang sinasabi niyo po, bago pumunta yan sa special purpose vehicle, kailangan magkaroon ng approval ng eligibility from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
As far as the NPAs being enrolled po.
Okay,
in the
so very clear. So ang sinasabi po ng Bangko Sentral as the authority, sila po talaga nag-approve at yan po yung batas, kailangan dumaan sa amin. Babalik po ako sa DBP. Doon po sa 4 na ipinasok nyo special purpose vehicle, tama po ba na ang Maynilad at ang Benpres, kung di ako nagkakamali, walang eligibility?
You're correct, Mr. Chair.
So tama po. Pero ibinilagay nyo pa rin po sa special purpose vehicle.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So thank you for that. At least klaro na po, Mr. Chair, yung nangyari. Kasi pupunta na ako sa next presentation, please. Ito po yung submission nyo sa amin. Next slide, please. Yung next slide na mo, yan.
Honorable Mike,
Yes.
i-clear ko lang kung tao mo itong dalawang nakatayo kasi baka mamaya mabaril na ako eh.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
So, ito po yung sinabit sa atin. Yan po yung inyong kontrata with Lehman Brothers. Next slide. Nakalagay po dyan, certification of eligibility. Mismong sa inyo pong agreement, nire-require kayo ng Lehman. Talagang kailangan may certification of eligibility. So it's coming from DBP, it's coming from Lehman, and I'm very happy that it's clear now with the Bangko Sentral. Dahil noon naman, Ms. Cube, in fairness to sinabi mo na oo. But ngayon, very firm na in-establish natin na talagang kailangan, and DBP is now agreeing to that. Yan po talaga yung kontrata nila. Ngayon, Mr. Chair, ang sinabi po, next slide. Sabi po ni President Herbosa, I just quoted portion of his letter. In the case of non-performing loans and non-performing assets ng Lopez entities, DBP did not condone or write off its NPLs. So yan po yung sinabi niya. Okay, sinasabi niya walang write off, walang condonation. Again, I'll ask Attorney Adjong. So wala pong write off, walang condonation.
There was none, sir.
Okay. Yung pong 6 billion, di ba hot, 7 na billion kayo? So, nasa libro nyo, 7 na billion, binenta nyo, bumalik sa inyo 3-point-something billion. Yung 6 na billion pong natira, ano pong treatment nyo doon? Di ba tinanggal nyo yun, inalis?
Honorable
Yes, please.
Defensor, for accounting treatment, those 60% were booked against reserves. I mean, so the OPB, the 9.6, those are covered with reserves. So the OPB or the value less the payment is a deficit, right? And these are covered with allowance for probable losses. So Net effect is zero in the books.
Tama ho, pero losses.
That's covered by allowance for probable losses.
So, sa madaling salita, pinapayagan kayong magkaroon ng pagkalugi na 6 billion. So it was never condoned, hindi siya write-off pero losses.
Hello, some admin matters only.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. I was informed by the COMSEC that because we have a slide that is shared in the Zoom, our stenographers cannot ascertain who is the person talking. So when you respond, please identify yourself, the resource persons, and please address the chair, not the member, when you answer. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just to be clear again, no, inaano ko lang po, pinapayagan ng DBP na sa kanyang transaksyon, sa kanyang negosyo, kung minsan nalulugi siya. So ito yung covered by losses. Allowance pala, allowance for
Probable
losses.
losses.
So
Please,
kinikilala
please
ni...
inform your name before.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I am Romeo Aguilar of DBP.
Yes. So Mr. Chair, sa madaling salita, lugi, losses, lugi. Nagkaroon ng pagkalugi. Na pinapayagan naman ng batas.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next slide, please. Ang sabi ng COA, sabi niya, completed the sealed bid auction of non-performing accounts consisting of SPV eligible. So under the Special Purpose Vehicle Act of 2002, the gross value of the assets sold had a total outstanding principal of 9.34 billion. Medyo mali pa nga ho to, no? And then 5.7 billion daw yung up, 3.02 ang pagkakabenta. The transaction, ito pala, loss on sale of NPAs was charged against the related specific provisions to current operations under miscellaneous income. Yan po yung binabanggit nyo, Mr. Aguilar. Tama po ba? Okay. So parang sinasabi kasi lumalabas Hindi, sabi ng COA, hindi naman kami nalugi. Hindi naman to kinondone Hindi naman to write-off. Alam nyo, para sa aming mga hindi taga-bangko, kasi ang condonation, in fact, is not a bank term. Hindi po yung ginagamit na salita sa bangko. Tama po ba, Mr. Aguilar? Mr. Chairman?
It is used, sir.
It is used.
Yes.
So, okay. So, condonation, ang ibig sabihin, pinatawad ka. Okay. Write-off, ibig sabihin, tinanggal, binura. Tama?
Strictly speaking, for accounting purposes, it's not a write-off or condonation. It's charged against the APL.
Yung write-off.
It's not a write-off, sir.
No. Ang sinasabi ko yung mga definition. Para lang humaklaro. Pag condonation nga, pinatawad ka. Pag write-off, binura. Parang ganun po yung ibig sabihin. Ibang-iba to. Two different words. Anyway, Mr. Chair, let's not debate about the etymology of the words. Pero dito sinasabi ng COA,
No, Mr.
based
Chair,
on the SPV Act, na iyan po ay na-charge ninyo sa inyong provision to current operations na binanggit nyo naman kanina. Tama po ba? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I think etymology is very important, lalo na sa mga non-accountants na katulad namin. Kasi sa DBP po, Mr. Chair, pinipilit nila na hindi ni write-off talaga o kaya hindi kinondon. Yun po ang minimaintain ninyo, di ba? Ang sinasabi nyo, dinirecognize nyo lang. Yun ang term nyo Dinirecognize nyo sapagkat ang ginagamit yung dahilan, duman lahat sa proseso sa ilalim ng SPB law. Ibig sabihin, mayroong COE. Ito nga yung Certificate of Eligibility na galing sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. At saka mayroong clean opinion ng COA. Pero,
Mr. Chair, kaklaro ko lang, walang Certificate of Eligibility yung dalawa. Pero nilagay pa rin sa special purpose vehicle.
Pero ginagamit nga nila yung term, ang ginamit yung term, de-recognize. Para sa amin, it is a sugar-coated term. Sapagkat, technically speaking, kung ang pag-uusapan ay yung umutang, talagang write-off yun doon sa kanyang doon sa kanyang books of accounts. Depende kung sino yung tumitingin Kung ako yung nangutang, okay, ni-write-off ko yun doon sa aking book of accounts. Tama? Para sa inyo, walang write-off, walang condonation. Kaya nga, miski na tanong natin, Mr. Chair, sa BSP, dito sa kanilang position paper, ang sabi nila, based on available records in BSP, there is no information on loan condonation or write-offs by DBP of the accounting belonging to Benpres Holdings Corporation. Wala talaga tayong makikita. Dahil ang ginagamit po ninyo is a sugar-coated term, derecognized.
No, sir. Actually, so from DBP's books, these assets were sold to an SPB. So the loan still exists. But the borrower now is the lender now is the
Lehman
SPB.
Brothers.
Lehman Brothers.
No, Mr. Aguilar.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
that is
Mr.
from the
Chair.
SPB.
Hello, excuse me. We cannot have three people talking at the same time.
Yes.
It's still that I'd like to inform the sponsor that he has gone over the time. But since you are the sponsor, we will give you double time.
Chair,
So,
yeah.
40 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tatapusin ko lang po to din na maybe this Marcoleta.
Yes.
Gusto ko lang
let's-
klaro, Mr. Aguilar, no? Parang yung meron kang tindahan, di ba? May mga binibenta kang damit. Ngayon yung damit mo, hindi na siya nabibenta. Okay? Binili mo siya ng 100 piso. Ngayon, itong damit, para kumita ka, binenta mo sa labas ng 30 pesos. Which is what happened. Ito yung nangyari mismo. Yung pagkalugi mo na 70 pesos, inilagay mo lang doon sa operational cost mo. Sabi mo, hindi, parte naman yan ng operational cost ko. Pero nalugi ka pa rin. Tama?
That's correct, sir.
O yun, ganun lang naman. Ngayon, pasensya na po kayo, Mr. Aguilar, Mr. Chair. Kami po, ang taong bayan, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, simple lang ang pag-intindi namin Yung 9 na bilyon, binenta yung 3 bilyon, nagkaroon ng lugi ng 6 na bilyon. Whether it was condonation, write-off, ang gusto namin sabihin, lugi. So next slide, please. Ito ngayon yung si Pangulo.
I will go after itong mga elite. And I will not name the person, but yung mga company nila noon, Benpres and about 6 other companies, may utang sila sa DBP. At ang utang nila umabot to finance this pera ng tao, gagamitin nila to finance their business. Pero kanila yung kita. And yet, they were not able to pay. And it was condoned by government.
Yan, Mr. Chairman, ang pagkakaintindi ng inyong abang lingkod at marami sa atin dito, kasi nga naman, yung 1.5 billion pesos na ibinenta sa isang special purpose vehicle ay naging 500 pesos na lang, more or less. Is that correct, Mr. Aguilar?
40% of the 1.5.
40% of the 1.5. So magkano po yun?
600.
Okay. So 600 million na lang po ang pagkakabenta. Ngayon, kahit ilagay mo na ng 6%, ang interest nila, 3 years, ang laki pa rin dun sa original na utang nila. I do not know if Philippine Investment 1 and 2 are here, Mr. Chair.
That is the problem, Honorable Defensor. We do not have ways and means to liquidate them. We need the help of DBP.
Okay. So,
They have provided the contact details, but we will invite them in the next hearing.
yes, Mr. Chair. Pero isipin niyo po, Mr. Chair, no? Umutang ako 1.5 billion. Pagkatapos lumipat dito yung utang ko, naging 600 million na lang. So, syempre, yung special purpose vehicle, gusto rin niya kumita. Kahit nasabihin mong 10% o 20%, that is only 660 million. O 720 million ang kanyang babayaran. Ang tanong ngayon, magkano niya naibenta? Kung yung mga utang na yun, let's say in the case of Maynila, yung 1 billion, naibenta niya ng 3 billion, nalugi DBP, kumita pa yung nangutang. So ito lang po yung binabanggit ko, Mr. Chair. Anyway, yung akin naman hypothetical, dahil wala naman po dito yung Philippine Investment 1 and 2, to clarify that. But next slide, please. Yan po ang nakalagay sa batas. Any loss that is incurred by the financial institutions as a result of the transfer of the non-performing asset shall be treated as ordinary loss. Kaya po itong BSP, COA, DBP, sinasabi nila, walang condemnation, walang write-off, because this is precisely the point of the Special Purpose Vehicle Act of 2002, that it will be treated as an ordinary loss. Pero again, merong violation. Number 1, yung loan na walang collateral. Number 2, yung certificate of eligibility na hindi ibinigay para yan ipasok sa SPAV. You know, Mr. Chair, during my research, and I called up the respective CEOs of Pag-ibig, of which ako po yung sekretaryo dati, Mr. Ahmad Moti. I called Mr. Felix Butos of the National Mortgage and Finance Corporation. Simple lang ho ang tanong ko. Sabi ko, nung panahon namin sa housing, hindi pwedeng magbenta ng loans under book value. Tinanong ko sila, nagagawa nyo ba yan ngayon? Ang sagot po ng dalawa, hindi. We cannot do that. Kung minsan ho nagkakaroon ng balanse ng mas mataas sa book value at mas mababa ng kaunti, but in the end, the total book value ay tinatamaan. So in this case, there was graft and corruption committed, Mr. Chairman. Next slide, please. So again, ang definition ng loss, lugi in Filipino. Yung 9.556 billion na utang, binayaran na lamang ng 3.83 bilyong piso. Tama po ba to, Mr. Aguilar?
That's the sale transaction, sir.
Thank you. At, next slide please. Ang pagkalugi ng DBP at ng sambayan ng Pilipino, 5.726 bilyong piso. Itong pondo pong to, noong pahutong 2004, hindi ko ho alam, based on current value, kung magkano to. But 5.7 billion, kailangan to para pantulong sa taong bayan. Ngayon, na may pinag-uusapan tayong ayuda, under Bayanihan Part 2. Kailangan to para sa pagbakuna ng tao. Dahil ang pondo pong yan, uutangan natin. Kailangan to para palakasin ang ating ekonomiya. Yan ang nawala sa DBP. Under questionable circumstances, mga pangyayaring hindi dapat, nagkaroon po ng ganitong problema ang DBP. And I hope, Mr. Chair, at a proper time, we can do the remedial legislation required. Thank you so much sa ating mga kasama. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Honorable Defensor.